This young officer's reaction to being filmed tells a story. A Norwegian, he's conditioned to feel pressure from his peers, and he looks away nervously. But the camera's persistent, and he's confronted by the decisions that have brought him here. His posture turns staunch and defiant. He's present. He's a volunteer legionnaire. Yeah, I guess I've gone Werner Herzog on you guys. Maybe he's just camera shy. With the British pulling their troops out from the Norwegian theatre in May of 1940, and the coming of the war against the Soviet Union, we'll see how Nationalist Norway got involved in an uncomfortable slow dance with their occupiers, which made the creation of the volunteer Norwegian Legion possible. Using primary source materials, we'll take a look at the well-balanced propaganda campaign used to find volunteers and get financial support from the general Norwegian public. Finally, we'll follow the unit as it musters for the first time and begins to train in preparation for its active duty in 1942. If you like the way I use primary sources to create these videos, remember to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and sign up for information about the video-on-demand platform that is in the making. If you go to military1945.com, you'll find additional footage of the Legion that can't be shown here. Go take a look. You won't be disappointed. I promise.
Verstärkungen springen an der Erzbahn bei Björnfjell ab.
During the invasion of Denmark and Norway in 1940, Operation Weserübung, the horrors of the Polish campaign had not been experienced by the Scandinavian populations. Although the fighting lasted for 62 days, most of the combat took place away from the cities, and there had been no significant bombing campaign, which left the general population largely unaffected. This footage is of German Fallschirmjäger, paratroopers, in an operation around Narvik, a largely rural area situated far to the north. With the British pulling out for geopolitical reasons, namely the battle in France coming to a head, rather than being soundly defeated militarily, there was a lingering question as to whether they'd been abandoned. As the German authorities settled in, the soft policies associated to the country's occupation were intentionally lenient and cooperative in nature. This Norwegian newsreel footage is from the summer of 1940, just as the German occupation had begun. Unlike in most occupied countries, German soldiers were encouraged to fraternize with the locals. 8 SS-administered so-called Lebensborn homes were set up in Norway, which took care of thousands of children born from relationships between Norwegian women and German soldiers.
Tropper er stilt til disposisjon av sitt uoverskuelige krigsbytte.
Through 1940 and into 1941, news about the German military's blitzkrieg victories continued streaming in. As shown in this footage, the presentation of captured enemy weaponry was popular, especially among the youth, and reinforced the idea of German military superiority. In addition, impressive military parades were regularly organized in the cities. There was an understandably large portion of the Norwegian population that believed that the current situation was long-term, or even permanent. Even the Norwegian government in exile in Britain was itself ambiguous about what they expected of their compatriots. In July of 1941, in a speech by Norwegian Minister of Justice Terboven, broadcast by the BBC for listeners in German-occupied Norway, it was declared that while the enemy holds power in the country, Norwegian public servants must endure a certain connection with the German authorities, but that a Norwegian public servant must never let himself be used as a tool by the German regime. That complicated relationship was left to the interpretation of each individual. Ever since the Russo-Finnish War of 1939 to 1940, there was considerable mistrust of the Soviets. With the invasion of the Soviet Union on June 22nd of 1941, there was a general feeling that Norway needed to do its part in the anti-Bolshevik crusade. On July 4th, in coordination between the German occupational authorities and the Norwegian Fascist National Union that was led by the collaborationist Quisling, former Norwegian soldiers were invited to join the new volunteer Norwegian Legion. Within a week, 448, or 20%, of the Norwegian Army's former officers had volunteered. The successful recruiting campaign was run by Norwegians and placed heavy emphasis on showing solidarity with Finland. One way of doing this was by showing the two nations' flags together. For example, in postage stamps and posters. By portraying Germany as a comrade in arms, as an equal, once again a feeling of cooperation and not subservience was emphasized. The Norwegian Legion was officially part of the Waffen SS, however its commanding officers were to be Norwegian, the language spoken would be Norwegian, they were promised Norwegian uniforms, and their region of operation would supposedly be a defensive nature in Finland. Everything pointed towards the revitalization of Norway by the newly empowered and seemingly independent Norwegian nationalists. Those recruited to the Norwegian Legion were first sent to the Bjotsen Skøl camp in Norway, where uniforms were issued. This is also where they got their first surprise. Rather than receiving Norwegian uniforms as promised, the Legionnaires received standard German SS uniforms. The only difference was the Norwegian national flag sleeve patch. To what extent the young soldiers could comprehend the significance of this sleight of hand is difficult to say. Had some innocent-sounding supply snafu been used as an excuse? The unit was already officially incorporated into the SS hierarchy, which put the soldiers ultimately under the direct command of the Reichsführer Heinrich Himmler. This outwardly evident symbolic association was meaningful. The official motto of Himmler's SS was Meine Ehre heißt Treue, or Loyalty is my honor. The question, of course, was, loyalty to whom, and for what? Thanks for watching, and remember to take a look at military1945.com.